And my guest this month is, well, I mean, it's Paget Brewster. I mean, she's right there on the screen. You can see, right? She's the star of stage to screen and voiceover, the whole thing. You know her from Criminal Minds, but she's done a ton of stuff that I want to talk to her about. And so everybody will do our hearing impaired, deaf applause, right? We're going to do the hands, and we're going to welcome Paget Brewster into the Refuge Roundtable. Welcome, Paget Brewster.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, there we go. I'm going to start the way I always start with everybody. So let me ask you. So did you grow up like with the arts? Did you do it in middle school and high school? Were your parents artistic? Was it encouraged in your home? Tell me the story there, if you can.
Sure. My mom and dad were teachers growing up. My mom is an artist. She's a ceramicist, but she wouldn't call herself that. But she makes pots and these things called Gata gardens. She builds sculpture. My dad is an orator. He was an English teacher and a crew. He coached crew and soccer, and then became college placement. And he can talk. He had a lecture that was very famous that was called the 45-minute Iliad. And so he is just a storyteller. My brother is a graphic designer and artist, and he builds sets hires photographers. Like he's an
nice
overview of for Nike or but acting was not. Acting was kind of frowned upon. There were no actors in my family, but I did it all through middle school and the town play and high school. And
now, where did you grow up?
Grew up in Concord, Massachusetts, at a boarding school called Middlesex, which is
nice.
It was a private boarding school that was all boys until 1976, and then it went co-ed. And my mom and dad were teachers there, so my brother and I grew up in the dormitory.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
So you did.
We were lucky.
Yeah. So you did theater like in middle school and high school.
Yeah. And then I went to, because visual arts were okay, I applied to Parsons School of Design and Pratt in Brooklyn and got into Parsons and attended Parsons for 1 year. But I went around and apologized to all of my art teachers because I joined a Circle in the Square production of Hurly Burly at the same time. And because I wanted to act, but I didn't have the courage to tell my parents, who would have said, that's not a career, you can't do that. And they've changed their tune. They're very happy now. They've been happy for a couple decades. They're great now. But back then that would not have been acceptable. So I dropped out of Parsons and
so let me just to make sure I understand. So your first gig in New York was working at Circle in the Square on Hurly Burly?
No. I lived in the George Washington Welfare Hotel on 23rd and Lexington. And one of the other guys in the building was in Circle in the Square, and he played Phil in David Rabe's Hurly Burly. And they couldn't find a Darlene, and they were replacing someone. And so he just asked me in the elevator if I would audition, even though I wasn't part of that theater group or that school. So I auditioned and I got the part, and I ended up doing the play for, I don't know, we did it for, a month or something, 2 months. I
love that play. Yeah, no, that's fantastic. So, okay. So from there, so what were the steps then? So you're in New York, right?
Yes. I'm in New York. I'm bartending, mostly downtown, Sidewalk Cafe at 6th and A, Benny's Burritos, same corner.
So was Hurly, so let me ask you, so was Hurly Burly, did you ever have like, as a kid, like that kind of secret place in your heart where it's like, this is what I want to do, but because of parent pressure, it was like, well, I can't have that.
Not only did I think I couldn't have it, I made the mistake of actually deciding I would be a singer and putting together a band, because I thought, I didn't have the courage to pursue acting or go to acting school or apply to a college where I could get a degree in theater. I thought if I become a singer in a band and I get these people in the band, then I'll be like Cher or Sting. And Very misguided. But a lot of it was just not having the courage to try to act for a living.
Yeah.
Hurly Burly was a fluke. Nothing came of it. It was just another play in New York City. And, I didn't get an agent out of it. And so I did not try to get an agent until I was 25 years old in San Francisco, years after I had moved away from New York City.
Well, okay, but look, because so for me,
I'm
like,
frustrating
no, not at all. There's just like all these threads I want to explore, but
Sorry.
like, so no. So like, I mean, Circle in the Square Theater is important to me because like my early days, I got to do a master class with Jose Quintero, who founded that with Ted, like way back in the 50s, right? And so Circle in the Square Theater is like a seminal kind of moment in American theater history, right? So the fact that, and I don't know what the reputation was at the time that you got into Hurly Burly, and I love that play, but this is the thing I want to ask. So, I mean, like, so being on stage in that role, like just being in a theater, I mean, what, was there something that was unlocked? Was there something that made you go like, okay, this is it? Was there a feeling of kind of like sacred belonging, for lack of a better phrase?
Yeah, but really that feeling had happened many years before as a young kid.
Yeah.
I think I was in 4th grade when I auditioned for the town play, and it was I made people laugh by imitating Groucho Marx, and when I heard everyone laughing, it felt like God hugging you. Like it feels like gold. It's rainbows and love and happiness. That feeling of acceptance and you've made people happy right in front of you is like a drug. And
it's
so
a hell of a drug.
That was it. So 4th grade, I just was because it wasn't considered a profession to, I would say, most people in Massachusetts. Certainly in education, that was just, you wouldn't pursue that. That's not possible. So I didn't pursue it until much later.
Okay, so how long did you stay in New York, like doing the bartending, restaurant
bartending,
hustle?
Singing in a band, living with the drummer, who's a great furniture designer right now, by the way. Outstanding, and still drumming, has bands. That was, I graduated from high school in 87. So I lived in New York City from 87 to 93.
Okay.
Moved to San Francisco with the drummer boyfriend. We put together another band. I was like, I can't anymore. And we broke up. That had to end. And then I started acting school. I was still bartending, started acting school and got an agent who hung out at my bar and started pursuing, but I didn't realize he was an agent for correspondence and anchor people. So I ended up getting a talk show. I was a talk show host in San Francisco for a year.
Oh, wow. So wait, so where'd you go to school in San Fran?
In San Francisco, I went to Jean Shelton's Actors Lab. I studied with her sons, Chris Phillips, and what was the other guy? Chris and Matt Phillips and Jean Shelton. And that's all I did in San Francisco. And then I got the talk show. I did 4 Dogs and a Bone at the Actors Lab.
How long did the talk show go?
While I was a talk show host, though.
Yeah.
The talk show was called The Paget Show. It was on at 1:30 in the morning, but we got great ratings. So they moved us to 1 a.m.
Hey!
We shot 65 episodes and I was a host and I ran around in the audience and, took audience questions. And it was like, I love him. Why do my parents hate him? And then we had some polygamist guy from Utah with his 14 wives. We had a drag queen, like karaoke contest. Like it was a very diverse bunch of shows, but that was because that was in 94 when Ricky Lake was huge on Fox. So every producer signed someone in their 20s to host a talk show, and I just happened to be the one for Westinghouse, and then CBS bought Westinghouse.
So it was a local late night, yeah?
KPIX, 1:30 in the morning.
Holy cow. So, I mean, was it kind of like the standard format, like behind the desk with kind of weird, wacky guests, more like,
It's more I
or more like
start on
person in the street?
stage. Well, there was man on the street interviews, but it was more like, it was like Oprah, I guess, or Phil
Okay.
Donahue. It's the host and a guest. And then you start adding more guests. And then the host moves to the audience and you basically only have guests on the stage and you can walk up and talk to them and you're taking questions from the audience. And you give away a free fossil watch to the audience member that gets the biggest reaction from the crowd. And there's a format.
Yeah, that's so amazing. So, and I guess that, and I don't know if I heard this from Lisa, like when I was kind of interning at Criminal Minds, but the sense that I have about you, like the thing that I first saw you, it was Criminal Minds, right? So a very intensely dramatic role, but like word on the street was like that you came from comedy. And so do you feel like that? Because, and that makes sense given like the talk show kind of background. But I mean, do you feel like that is where you got your feet wet, kind of like?
I would say, yeah. And yeah, I guess you could say I got my feet wet by doing a talk show, but that was 1 year. When I moved to Los Angeles in 96, I had an agent that I had gotten while in San Francisco. And I only did sitcoms, multi-camera sitcoms on a stage. I did, I think 6 or 7 of those. I ended up doing, I want to say 14 or 15 sitcom pilots.
Wow.
So a lot of them don't go, but I think 5 went. That's actually a pretty good thing. But then they were, they would go for 6 episodes, or you'd shoot 13 episodes and then it would be canceled at the 3rd episode. So it was all sitcoms. So my first job in LA was, I shot a pilot that didn't get picked up that no one saw. And then I was on Friends for 6 episodes. So then that's how I kept working, was because I'd done that part on Friends. I kept getting cast in pilots, in comedy pilots.
And so, I mean, were you surprised, like when the opportunity with Criminal Minds came around? I mean, did that, given kind of what you were like, how did that come about? I'm just curious.
Well,
Wait, and actually, before you answer that,
yeah.
I apologize for interrupting. Hey, guys, I meant to tell you this at the top. If you've got questions, put it in the chat. Okay, I will try to get to them. We're going to talk first, and then, so don't be shy. Put it in there, and we'll get to them. Okay, when we're done talking. All right, good work. All right, so go ahead. How'd that come about?
Criminal Minds came about in 2005. I had shot, I think, 2 seasons of a Showtime show called Huff, with Hank Azaria, Blythe Danner, and Oliver Platt, and Anton Yelchin. And that was that was all mostly comedy people doing a drama. And that was a lot of crying. My marriage is falling apart and my kid's in trouble. And then I thought, okay, you're not a real actor unless you do movies. I need to do movies. That's what I'm supposed to be doing. That's respected. So I signed up for all these movies, and I was shooting movies all over, like low, not big budget. Well, one big budget. Anyway, I was shooting movies all over the place in Austin, Texas, Lancaster, California, and LA, and New Orleans. And I realized I hated it. And I didn't want to, keep doing my laundry in a bathtub in a hotel and hang out with people for a few weeks that then you might not see for years. I realized, no, I really like going into work every day with the same people, having that family feeling, even if they're people you hate. You're still there's still something very, very valid about it to me, and very precious. And so I was in a hotel room in Louisiana making a TV movie with Rob Lowe, and my agent called and said, would you meet on this show, Criminal Minds? And it was on the TV. Their pilot was playing a year after their show started. And it was on the TV as I was on the call. And I was like, yes, I will. I would like to go. I want to go talk to those people. And I was one of those people who read everything about serial killers and arson. And I read all of that stuff. And so I wanted to meet them. I thought I wanted to play a cop. It just looked great to me. I didn't think I'd get it, but I went and met with them. And they started talking to me about real cases, and I was saying, "Oh, of course, I know who you're talking about." And they said, "How do you know who that is?" And I said, "Oh, well, I watched this series, I read this book, I saw these interviews." And I guess that's what it was, because I never auditioned for it. They said, "Do you have any questions for me?" And I said, "Well, how crazy is Mandy Patinkin?" And
Oh Lord.
they said, "Actually, Mandy's crazy is only hurts us. Like, he's difficult to write for because he'll disagree with some of the storylines we write, but he'll love you. He's never mean. He's a brilliant actor. He's a great guy. He's so much fun." And they were right. They didn't lie. He was wonderful. We sang show tunes in his trailer, and the phone would ring and they'd say they're ready on set, and we'd go in, and he was extremely professional. And even though he did decide to quit the show and he drove away a year later, I would work with him in a heartbeat. I thought he was wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so funny. So you did Criminal Minds for how many years before leaving? And then
all together, it was 6 years in a row. Then I was gone for 4 years, and then I did the last 4 seasons, but I guested here and there. So I was on it for 15 of the 16 seasons, or 14 of the,
yeah.
I don't know. Because we shot the last 2 seasons were like half seasons. We shot that in a row. So I think that was my 3rd year having come back.
How was it coming back?
Oh, great. I mean, it was under difficult circumstances. I came back. They had asked me to return. They'd let go of me and AJ Cook, and then realized that was a mistake. And I was just too angry about it, so I wouldn't come back.
Yeah.
And I said, "I'll guest star," because I realized I love everyone there. I don't like Les Moonves. I don't like that dude. I don't like what they did, but I love everyone at Criminal Minds. So I agreed to guest star for 10 episodes. And I thought, well, this is great. I get, but when I got there, Thomas Gibson had been fired for an altercation with a writer. And so the showrunner and the writers and the cast came to me and said, "Please agree to come back as a series regular now as the unit chief. You're still, Emily Prentice is alive and you've been working for Interpol, but if you come back, then we know who we have. If you don't, they're going to hire somebody we have no say over, and it could be a jerk." And I was like, oh. And meanwhile, for 4 years, I'd had people coming up to me in the supermarket saying, "Why did you leave the show? Why are you gone? This is, and so when all of that happened, I was like, yeah, why am I gone? I'm really good at playing an FBI agent, and I love everyone here. So I came back.
The thing one of the reasons why I wanted to invite you, because I remembered that you had done that documentary, The Gal Who's in That Thing.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I know that you have a fair amount of notoriety because of your role as Emily Prentice, where you'll be recognized in a public place by the fan base, which I know Criminal Minds has an incredible fan base. But you do strike me, and this is what I love, you do strike me as just this actor who works. You know what I mean? And so, like, doing Drunk History, which I absolutely adore, you know what I mean? And doing Another Period, like doing all of these like really kind of quirky comedy pieces. And I was thinking about this, it's odd to me, like, okay, so when I think of like Children's Hospital, I think of The State, I think of all those guys, right? Like David Wayne and Ken Marino, Kerry Kenny, right? Michael Ian Black, you know what I mean? Like, I think of those guys, and I think of like The League, right? With Paul Scheer and Nick Kroll, Jason Mantzoukas. Like, there's this Children's Hospital, Rob Hubel and Aaron Hayes and Rob Corddry, Brian Husky, like all of these guys like are all in this kind of comedy pond, right? And they've all kind of coexisted together. And there you are as well, like in that pool of people. But I mean, like, people, I think, but I don't think of you like in that kind of like comedy cartel, I guess. I mean, I think of the, I mean, I do, because there is this kind of cross-pollination with all of those folks doing these kind of like quirky, a lot of those Adult Swim kind of content and all of that. And yet you really are like embedded with so many of those folks. And do you feel like, your kind of comedy chops, your kind of like comedy pedigree, like kind of gets the attention that it should?
Wow, that's an interesting question. But first, let me say, I guess it's an active choice that I mean, I choose to go. Listen, a lot of this work doesn't pay. I mean, it doesn't. You're not making any. You're not. So 3 years of another period for Comedy Central and doing Drunk History, you get 2 bottles of mom wine from Gelson's. Like if you push Derek, he would bring you a bottle of Bullet. It's
wow.
That's for the love of it.
Right.
And lucky for me, I had a job that was a big network procedural that paid my mortgage. So when I wasn't working on Criminal Minds, I was able to fly to San Francisco for a comedy festival or shoot. I was on Community for the final season. I did Grandfathered for Fox. So I definitely actively kept my foot in that pool because I didn't want to be only drama. I didn't want to just be a cop from here on out, which is what can happen in this industry once you do something. Norm from Cheers isn't playing a serial killer anywhere. Like you play a part for a while. That's who you're seen as. So I definitely was very conscious of wanting to continue to work with those guys. And I did Kroll Show. I know all those guys and they're great. And we do work for free. We show up and do live shows at UCB or for Sketchfest, or we help each other out for, hey, I'm having a reading of my script, and you go, and you drive and you read someone's script to support them and hope that they get to sell it to a studio or the comedy community of those comedic actors, men and women, and transgender, are all very supportive physically and emotionally of each other. Now they bitch a lot, like, oh, that Odenkirk, what a piece of crap. He said he wasn't going to go to, they're very jealous of each other, but they are very supportive really when it comes down to it. And it's a community that I want to be a part of. I don't necessarily want to hang out with everyone who plays a cop on a CBS show. When that happens a couple of times a year, that's great. But as far as like, I don't know, those are my friends. And I did a live stage show called the Thrilling Adventure Hour. We've been doing that for 18 years now. And that's a lot of those comedy people. So they're just people that I've always worked with. And then I was lucky enough to get Criminal Minds and then be able to return to Criminal Minds to make money and save money and be able to finance the opportunities that I want to take working for free.
I'm gonna go to the questions because everybody's been really patient. Is there anything? I mean, like, is there? Is there anything you'd like to ask me? I mean, anything you're curious?
Oh, you froze. Was it just me?
No.
Oh.
Am I here? You hear me?
There's so much to ask you. There's so much to ask you. That's
no, please don't. I was kidding. We're doing a bit now, and now I'm flustered. Now I'm totally flustered.
I'm gonna ask you.
All right, go ahead.
Okay.
Yes, Bloodso's is my favorite barbecue place. I want to get them to sponsor this thing. It's the best barbecue in town. Okay, but go ahead.
Okay, thank God. I've been waiting so long. Okay, so I'm realizing now, looking at Zoom, I'm in a white. My kitchen's white and my shirt's white, so my hair looks dark, but my hair is actually gray. And I keep having casting directors ask if I will dye my hair for one episode or a guest star here, and I keep saying no, but I'll wig. Do you think there's going to be a time when women will be allowed to be gray casts in shows, or is it just men?
I mean,
not even just men, because I knew a guy who had to dye his gray hair and he was pissed off because he buzzed it and grown it out, and he was so excited about his salt and pepper, and they made him dye it.
Well, it's funny. So we had Joe Mantegna on the podcast early on, and with
that beautiful white hair.
And Lisa asked him about that. Like the kind of process that went through that decision, right? That decision-making process of allowing him to go his full gray, you know, and it was, I mean, I think he said he'd be fine. I think he said he was going to be fine being wigged or whatever. I don't even remember what it was, but it was a big fucking deal that that they were gonna let him go gray or whatever, and so it had to happen kind of, you know,
gradually, yeah, because he was going gray gradually, and then when I saw how great he looked with his gray, I was like, oh, I want to go gray. So I went to Erica Messer and I said, and my hair looked like, Prentice's hair looked like a Cleopatra wig anyway. So I went to Erica and I said, can I wear a wig for the last year, which ended up being like 2 seasons because they split it up. And she said, sure. So I had the wig. I have the wig. I have the wig in a cupboard. It's a beautiful wig. They let me
have
keep
it on my
when the show
mantle.
ended.
Yeah.
No, it would get dusty.
Oh Lord. You know what? Here's the thing.
You don't think so? And you know what? It's a dream factory or whatever. These are the same people that say, I'll cast hot over talented. So, and I don't mind wearing a wig. I'll wear a wig. I just don't want to keep dyeing it and ruining my hardwood floors. I'm sick of it. I was doing it. I was filling in my roots with a Sharpie on set when we shot outside, when we were doing Criminal Minds. I'm just sick of it. So I'm not going to dye it anymore. But a wig, I love a wig.
Yeah, this is the thing. This is the thing I will say. Like, and this is, I believe this, and I may be in the minority at this point, but I think until people demonstrate that it's okay, until a show demonstrates that, okay, so as an example, until a show demonstrates that the public has a taste for minority stories, right? Empire or Blackish, you know what I mean? Like, then things aren't going to change until that happens. So, you know, I think there are individuals who will have like a very long leash. Speaking of Kathy Bates, right? Mm-hmm. She's got a very long leash in terms of like what she can get away with. She's a name, right? Meryl Streep, you know, like these, I mean, I think women have a shitty fucking lot in this town. You know, they just do. And I think it's patently unfair, but I think that it's the thing I would tell any actor. It's like, don't ask for permission to do the work that you know you can do. And I think people need to like create their own content, you know, and even if you're not a writer, right? You know, a writer, you know, plenty of writers, you know, plenty of people in your sphere who, you know, like, you know, get out there and do it. You know what I mean? Like, don't, I'm not saying this to you. I mean, I'm saying this
no.
I you know what I mean? You know, I would never give, I mean, come on, you're Paget Brewster. Who the fuck am I? I'm in my library here, but you know what I'm saying? But I mean, it's like, but this is the thing, if you were to go gray and you were to say, okay, well, I'm now going to move into this area, right? Of like creating content, right? And it starts getting traction. I mean, like, then people are not going to have a problem with you being gray, right? Because your stuff is selling, because you're making profit for people. That's what it comes down to. You know what I mean? If you, as a gray person, still continue to make money for an entity, then it's like, then they don't give a shit. But that's what it comes down to. It's that, you're right. It's that like practical.
But now, quick question.
Okay.
Does it apply to other people as well? So Andy McDowell has gone gray and is on Maid. Allison Janney went gray, and I believe she wasn't wigging on Mom the last season. Cynthia Nixon went gray in the Sex and the City spinoff, I think, that's shooting right now. Is it possible that if enough people do it, it becomes more socially acceptable, or more business acceptable? It's the business I'm asking about.
And I think that is a variation of like kind of what I'm saying. Like, these people are going gray and nobody's losing money. Like, people are still coming to these, you know, like people still want to see Allison Janney, even though she's allowed her gray to show, because they like Allison Janney. You know, I mean, like, I think that network people and studio people don't give the audience nearly enough credit
That I would agree. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
They
I
never
think,
give the audience credit. Never give the audience credit for being smarter and faster and understanding how the medium works. Nobody needs to be spoon-fed anything anymore.
and I think we talked about this. So my favorite show of all fucking time is Barney Miller. I own the series on DVD. I watch it at least once, all the way through, once a year. I never get tired of it.
Wow.
And we're talking about a show that was shot in the mid 70s to early 80s, shot in LA, but it's about New York City. And it captures that particular moment in time in New York City, like the fact of, the city going bankrupt and Gerald Ford not allowing them to get a loan, or the dirtiness of the city before, they gentrified Times Square and all of that. And you had all of these great character actors coming through, like from the East Coast. You lived here now, and a lot of times they'd play different characters season to season, or they'd bring them back to play that particular character like every year, or they'd bring a guy who's like, oh, he's the paranoid guy, he's the paranoid type, so let's bring him in for this role, like to play this ex-CIA guy. You know what I mean? And you saw, and they were delightfully like quirky and character and gray and all of it, and they just fit into that world. And Barney Miller was a hit. I mean, like we look at the 70s as this kind of like golden era, and it's like that can still be true.
It was, yeah. But I mean, there was diversity in shows then that we lost for a while. I mean, and also early 80s Golden Girls. Nobody would make that show now.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you'll hate this, but I really, really wanted to see a retirement home Bachelor series. They were talking about it, and then I don't think it's going to happen, but I would love to see that. I would love to see some elderly people on dates.
I mean, sure. I mean, if you like reality television, okay, I think that's
reality. But no, Barney Miller was extremely diverse and
absolutely
human people, not a bunch of hot YouTubers, like hot guys with abs.
Well, listen, and Brandon Tartikoff was a big champion of putting on show, like rising to the occasion, like the audience will come to the level that you give them. Like that was what he was about. And so we got Hill Street Blues. We got these St. Elsewhere. We got these really edgy, great prestige shows. And the guy who's now running FX, I can't remember his name, John something or other, was under the Tartikoff umbrella. And it's no surprise that FX has some of the greatest programming on television, right. Period. In terms of prestige shows. I mean, I think it is equaling or surpassing what HBO is doing. And we're talking about basic cable. So let me just real quick, you mentioned UC. Did you go through the improv circuit here at all, or?
I did. I studied with Evan Gorer and Dave Rajowski at Comedy Bang Bang. I went to the Comedy Dojo with Chris Barnes. I studied improv, a lot of improv. But I didn't go through Groundlings, IO,
you did your
UCB.
thing.
I just took classes at a bunch of different schools. And I will say that what I've discovered in working with, if I'm cast in something and a casting director says, hey, come in and read, you're going to read with 5 people for chemistry or whatever.
Right.
I always look to see, and actually a casting director is one who told me this, look to see if they've taken improv, because it means they're more likely to be able to run with a direction or a changed line or a changed location. If they're able to be spontaneous and accept the situation. A lot of people can get in their head about, and I've seen it, where I need to say the line like this, and I can only, and you can't direct them, and they can't change what they're doing, and you can't say, hey, be a little angry about that, and they can run with that. Whereas for the most part, if you have improv classes on your resume, that I think is a little sign. Tell me if I'm wrong.
No, I
in
don't
casting,
think
have you come across that?
No, I don't think you're wrong. I think that what I've observed in casting is, I think the training is such that people are being taught to the test, right? We're not teaching them how to do a deep dive into character work, right? And to feel the pleasure of like jumping into a character and like getting into the meat and to the marrow. We're like, I think what workshops do and what a lot of classes do is like, okay, here are the tips and tricks, right? It's basically like dramatic interpretation. It's the good solid read, as I like to call it, and it's boring. You know what I mean? It's like you'll see 100 people and 75 people will give you the same exact fucking read, and it's like, how is that possible? Well, because everybody's being taught like this particular way of doing things, and nobody wants to like stand out. I mean, that's a fact. I think that people don't want to like make a really strong, bold choice, whatever that is, because they're terrified that like, but if they put their heart and soul into this thing, this character, and they don't get the part, they're going to take it as a rejection. And it's not that. It's not.
No, that's another interesting thing about reading with actors is I've seen 15 people come in and 2 weren't right for it. And 13 could have done it. Any one of them could have done it. And it was, has anyone worked with this guy before? Or maybe it'd be interesting if he was one of the taller guys or one of the shorter guys, or we need a blonde, or it's so arbitrary. And so whenever you go to an audition and you I will fail spectacular. I will make choices knowing I think I can tell by what she's saying, what she wants. And it can be like, oh, this therapist is a horrible bitch. She doesn't care about this kid. And so go for it. And afterwards, I will say, if my instincts were crap, I'll do it any way you want. But that's what I went with. And I'd rather die by that sword than give nothing and retain my dignity. Like, this job is not about dignity.
No,
you just
absolutely.
gotta like, I'm giving you what I would do, and they can hire you or not.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, the thing that I appreciate, so long as there's investment there and there's specificity and you're in your physical body, right? You're not just kind of like frozen and, not breaking eye contact because somebody told you not to break eye contact, which is ludicrous to me. You know what I mean? Like, to me, so long as it's like, it's flesh and blood. I mean, like this is my belief, and I've said it a bunch, like there is a mysticism that has been lost in our kind of modern thinking, right? There is something about being in communion with the character on the page and allowing them, asking the questions that you have about them and being in conversation with them and allowing yourself to be a vessel to present them to these people, like with honesty and vulnerability and integrity, regardless of results, not and to do that with courage, and to be of service to the character, to be of service in the room. Like, I want to collaborate with you guys. I've got this great work I want to show you. And 1 or 2 things will happen. They will say, yeah, let's collaborate. I can't wait. Or 2, it's like, no, I'm not interested. Thank you though for your work. And then you go and you have a cup of coffee. And I can almost guarantee you that you'll feel better walking out of the room, having done your job, instead of like just giving that good solid read and just kind of being like a cipher and walking out of the room wondering why you feel like shit.
Yeah.
Because you haven't honored your craft and your talent, because you've been afraid. I get it.
It did take me a long time. To learn that my choice is, I'm choosing to do this audition because it's going to be fun. And I know what I want to do and who I think this is. And I'm just going to go. It's just going to be fun for me.
Yeah.
And they can take it or leave it. But it's like, oh, this is the free part. I get paid for this later on that job or another job down there. This is just fun. I'm just going to go, like, I'm going to razzle dazzle them with what I think this person is. And then you're choosing to do it for you, whether they hire you or not. And there's like a joy and a confidence in that.
Yeah.
And you can say, hey, I may have just made the wrong choices. Maybe that's not who you're looking for. If you'd like me to make an adjustment, I'd love to do that for you. And they can say yes or no, but you just did it for you. Not, oh, these sons of bitches want me to 10 pages. I gotta drive to Santa Monica, or I gotta put myself on tape. I gotta cordon off my laundry room and hang up. And now I gotta get a blue screen, they say, because they don't like the gray one. Instead of being pissed off, just do it for you, which is hard. It's hard to learn, but it makes it worth it. Because then you're like, oh, I'm wasting their time. I'm going to go have fun. They're going to have to watch this. Ha ha. Like that. There's something really fun about that.
And
if you grab that choice.
and if everything is energy, like, okay, if you walk, if we get to a point where you can walk in the room again, if that's the energy that you have internally, that's infectious. That plays. Whether
Yeah.
you say the words or not, we will feel that. Whether you get the role or not is immaterial. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? It's just like, we had a guy come in. It was like this little indie film that we were doing. He had one line. I was there just to kind of react against, like, you know, I just kind of gave him eye contact. He's a commercial actor. You've seen it in a bunch of stuff. He came in. He was like, "Hey, what's going on? Good to see you." Blah blah blah. And he's like, "You know, I'm reading with you." Okay, great. He did the line. Said, "Yo, oh, you want to do it again?" Okay, great. Hey, thanks everybody. Walked out, and I turned to Gail and I said, "That's the guy. That's a pro right there." It's like, this is not even the most important thing that he's got going today, but it's his job to be here, and he did it. He didn't get the role, but Gail and I were like, "Love that guy. He did it great." You know what I mean? And that's, you feel that kind of sense of self and confidence and love and joy. You know what I mean? It's just, you do. What do you think about some questions? Do you have time? How are we doing on time?
Let's do it.
All right.
Let's
okay.
do it.
So Azalea, I hope I'm not butchering the name. Okay. Hi, Paget. I hope you're having an amazing day. Well, of course she is. I mean, we're having a great time, right? I wanted to ask, how do you prepare for really emotional scenes like the ones that you've done on Criminal Minds? And she loves you.
Oh boy. You know what? Hey, thanks, Azalea. I see you. Hello. Oh, I see someone behind you too. That's really hard because I guess, boy, it's something that it took me a while to learn it. I have definitely done scenes that they aren't, for some reason, the writing doesn't speak to me. And I can't feel that emotion just from saying the lines, or depending on the people I'm in a scene with or the environment that I'm in to get me to that emotional place. And I've cheated, and I will carry a menthol stick with me, and I put it under my eyes. And listen, sometimes if you're doing an emotional scene, sometimes you're doing it for 5 hours. You physically can't do it. You can't, anyone who can cry for 5 hours, I don't know who that person is, and I don't know if I want to hang out with them. That sounds appalling.
Yeah.
I can get it up. I'm not trying to be crass. I'm, you know, the emotional response. If the writing's great, it happens time and time and time and time again. If you understand it in the story, and if you understand the characters' relationships, and you realize, you know, oh, this woman is she can't take her Make-A-Wish kid to Disneyland because he now has an opportunity to get this surgery. But then they get to the hospital and find out surgery can't work. Well, that's pretty, you can see how someone would be upset. You can feel empathy for that story and get there. Sometimes people, for whatever reason, the scene hasn't been developed to the point, or the story of the entire overarching process isn't strong enough for you to feel that, to feel what you're supposed to be feeling and tell the truth when you're saying lines. And so you cheat. I have covered my face with my hands and drooled between my hands so that it looks like tears. I have poked myself in the eye. I have taken someone's cigarette and ashed in my eyes.
Oh.
I don't advise that one. That was a bad idea. There's always, you know, part of, and I guess, is this method or Meisner? I don't know. I took a lot of classes. The idea that you use a memory of yours.
That's method.
Method, thank you, to get you to the place you need to be. But that sometimes just doesn't work. You're in a high stakes environment. You have to hit that piece of tape, make sure that light's on you, make sure this person doesn't step in front of it. There could be people flirting in your eye line, and you have to cry about your son having to have an operation that he can't get. If you have to cheat. Everything, this business is a cheat. I mean, do your best to give the truth, but when you can't, figure out how to give the director and your scene partners and the audience and the editors what they want, which is for you to move the audience. And if that means you have to poke yourself in the eye or squeeze a cocktail onion in your purse and wipe do it. and know that they can edit that. If it's single camera, if it's multi-camera, cameras never come in close enough to probably really see you cry.
Yeah.
It's your job to do your best to, and I'm sorry, that's probably like anti-actor, but the job is to turn in a performance that the production can turn into something that moves people or makes people laugh. So however you have to get there, you get there. And I have not been able to cry. I have fake cried. One I really like is actually, if you put a little spit in the front of your mouth, you're supposed to cry. If you make this sound with your mouth, it sounds like you're sniffling in your nose. So just cover your eyes for a second. Or, I mean, there's ways to just think about it. Well, watch someone cry. And people who are crying don't want to cry. And a lot of times they're like trying to look up and trying to breathe so that they don't. That can be just as moving as someone with tears pouring down their face. Because there are people who can cry that still aren't very moving.
Yeah. I agree.
What do you think as a casting director? What do you think about that? Is that, am I a bad person?
I think, well, I mean, I think the practical thing of like, okay, if you're doing the scene for 5 hours, you know what I mean? And it's that like, it's tough to like call that up. I mean, I think that's a heavy lift. And to your point about like when I've done scenes with actors, and whether it's workshops or working with them, and it's an emotional scene, and I can see them gearing up to cry. Like as soon as it like, right. You know what I mean? They start going, and in my mind, I'm going, oh, here they go. They're going to cry. They're looking to cry. Here they go. And then we're crying. And the thing that I tell them is like, people don't think of themselves as weak. You know what I mean? Like you as the actor want to show this drama and this emotion, but it's like the character doesn't necessarily want that. They want to like be strong, And so don't give that person the benefit of your tears. Fight the impulse. And 7 times out of 10, now that's not scientific, but let's just say a majority of the time when they redo it, given that note, what ends up happening is the emotion comes to them organically because they're fighting against it with everything that they have.
Ooh, that's great.
And then it comes out of nowhere and surprises them. And then it becomes more authentic. You know what I mean? Because that's what we do, right? It's like I get so angry, right? And I start shaking, and it's like I'll dig my nail into my finger to keep myself from crying sometimes. And that's what people do, and I think that's what I respond to the truth of the psychology of the character. And I think we don't talk about that nearly enough, like how people behave in a given circumstance or with different people, you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, to your point too, I mean, it's like results have to be, you have to give results. Like, Paget, we got to see you cry here. Okay. Put onion juice under your eyes. You know what I mean?
And the other thing is there are people who makeup artists have, it looks like a crack pipe and it's menthol. I'm sure some of you have seen it. It's menthol in a pipe, and they walk up, preferably you've said in front of everybody, because you can't be embarrassed. Everybody just wants to get the job done and go home. So if you can't get there and you need to cry, or you've already done the scene and you have to continue to cry, you say out loud to the director and to your makeup artist, hey, Jimbo, can you bring in the menthol? And are you okay to roll? And we blow, and then we start. And the director, if it's a good director, will say, absolutely, we're ready. You let us know when you're ready. Everybody ready? And we're rolling. And your makeup artist comes in, blows in your eye, and that you will do for hours. You will do that for hours after. If you're doing scene, you have to do the scene over and over again, and it hurts, and you'll cry, and you'll have a headache, and it's very, very physically uncomfortable, but you'll get it done.
So there's that practical.
And everyone knows that. Everyone knows about the menthol blow. Everyone knows about the little stick you can carry in your purse and be like, I got it. And you pull your lid down and put your menthol in, and then like, okay, let's roll. And it has to be, you have to do it. And if the material doesn't get you there, you gotta, Thank you for supporting my cheating.
It's movie magic. I love it. You know what I mean? It's like, it's all an illusion. You know what I mean? Which is why we love doing it. Did you at times challenge the writing that you were given when you thought it wasn't credible?
No.
Okay.
I have asked if I could alter the wording a little bit, or I've tried to do what I can to, if I'm supposed to get emotional, it feels static. I know that I tend to, and again, just like you said, the idea is you're trying to fight the emotion. Like everyone's trying to fight from crying. But if I can get physical with someone, which now I haven't done much of, but in a scene, that helps me. And maybe it helps me feel strong enough to be vulnerable. I don't know, but I know that I have asked for specific blocking to give them what they want in the writing, even if it's not matching the writing blocking. But I don't challenge a lot of writing, because I do think the writer's job is to write. My job is to act. So I will do everything I can to justify what's written the way it's written. If that's the job I took it. Lucky for me that I've saved money because it's great writing. And if it falls short here and there, I'll do what I can without insulting anybody. I don't want to insult anybody. I don't want a writer to think I can write it better. I can't. I'm not a writer. I don't want to be. I've tried. I haven't sold anything. I've tried to create my own content. Hasn't worked out for me. So I tried to do it with respect for the person who wrote the scene. I would never say, this isn't getting me there. I would never, I just don't. And I've seen people do that, and I just don't. There's no point in that. What you can do is talk to the writer and be like, what can I do? What can I do? What do you want? What do you really, really want out of this? Because in procedural, in crime, like Criminal Minds, most TV shows, the writer is king. The writer and the showrunner. The director comes in and directs an episode or two, or maybe every other, but for the most part, it's who's the showrunner, who's the writer. That's who keeps the through line for the series. So that's who you need to talk to about, oh God, I want to give this to you, but I feel like, are you okay if I do the menthol? Or can I hug the kid? Or there's a way to figure that out.
I love the fact that for you, it's like the physicality, like you won't change the words necessarily, but again, like being in your physical body, being in like the physical interaction, that is the thing, right? That will get you to where you need to be with the lines. You know what I mean? Like there's a physical process as opposed to like a kind of inner emotion. Like I think we put so much emphasis on the emotional interior of the character.
That can be paralyzing.
Right.
That can be really paralyzing. And then you're seeing someone working their way up, and they're thinking about, the death of their grandmother, and you could kind of see that work going. It's a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
Supplant this scripted moment for the moment you realized your dad was disappointed in you, or you lost your best friend to cancer. Like it's hard to do that. It's hard to put that into this fictional story you're trying to tell.
Yeah. I mean, like it. And the thing, like, so like if you're dealing with a kid who's got cancer, in the hospital bed or whatever, and it's emotional moment, whatever. I mean, it could be as easy as just like making contact with that kid's hand. You know what I mean? Like rubbing their hand, and to get you into that moment. You know what I mean? And I
think so. That works for me.
It's amazing. Yeah.
I don't know if that would work for everyone, but it kind of like, when if you've ever felt like angry or vulnerable or insecure, and you're just like, you're kind of shaking and you're trying to keep it together. If someone hugs you, you're like, bah! That works for me physically, to even just be like, to touch someone's shoulder. There is some kind of connection to another person that takes you out of your head and into a place where that can be moving.
Yeah, agreed.
And I think we're that kind of creature.
I totally agree. So, hey, Allison, I'm going to ask your question, right? Okay. But like a text gets saved, like the text of this gets saved, like when it's done, and I'll send it off to Paget to have. Okay. So Allison met you at the grocery store, right?
Yes, I know.
Yeah. Okay. So question as an actress, how do I combat the fear, albeit real or perceived, that I'm not as good as everyone else in the room? This lack of confidence is a huge mental block for her.
Okay. First of all, everyone in the room thinks they suck. If people walk into the room and they think like they got it, that's a psychopath. we're an insecure, and we're the species that we are is we're insecure and we want to do well and we have fear. And actually that fear, you can use that. It takes a while to get over. Like you just have to keep trying. And it's a muscle. It's a muscle that you're working out. And another reason why I think getting up on stage in a class, and you're going to UCB, right? Are you doing UCB? Yeah, Allison. Oh, I thought you were. Anyway, I know you're in classes. Okay, but if you can get up on a stage and study improv, that's really scary because you're making stuff up. It's not even like you're reading a script or something. You're just in the scene with someone else. But there's a way to combat stage fright. And stage fright's the same thing as being frightened of walking into a room and auditioning. It can be paralyzing. I know people who have gotten prescriptions for beta blockers. It's just taking a pill to like not be nervous. It's a process of learning how to use your nerves to work for you. It could be, that's what energizes you, or it's hard to learn, but you can do it. And trust me, everyone's worried they're not good enough. Everyone's worried they're not good enough. It's not just you, it's everyone. Me too. Me saying I choose to go on this audition or tape this for myself doesn't mean I think I'm the snazziest goddamn actor in the world. I'm just trying to make it less fear-based. I'm trying to make it something joyful. And that doesn't mean I get the part. But fear is a healthy response. It's okay to feel fear. It's okay to feel insecure. It's now, how do you use that to do your best job just at that time, on that material, in that 40 minutes? That's it. And then it's over. You don't have to worry about it again. But it's something you have to keep doing.
At the beginning of your career, did you ever say yes to an audition for a project which had a terrible script, just out of respect for the CD who gave you the opportunity?
Well, okay, sorry. It wasn't out of respect for the casting director who gave me the opportunity. I took anything so that I could get experience and so that I could get into SAG and so that I could, pay my rent. And no one gets great scripts day one. You'll do crap for years. That's how you build a resume. You're not Kate Winslet. You're not, you're just going to do whatever comes along. It could be 6 years. It could be 15 years. That doesn't mean you're not bringing something of value to it. You can be like, oh man, this is a dog, but boy, that's going to be fun because we're shooting here, or so-and-so's in it, or there's always something to enjoy about it. I have sent casting directors flowers and muffin baskets after I got a great part because they changed my life in that moment. And I'm thankful to them for that. But yeah, the taking of inferior material is, what are your options right now? Because working is better than not working. And as long as you're not signing up for 10 years of the worst thing you've ever read in your life, why not? You need to build your resume. You need to put money in the bank, and you need to, join the union. Or I was background in San Francisco. I did bank infomercials where I walked around in a vest, pointing to computers and saying, Bob loves spreadsheets, or what I did anything so that I could be comfortable in front of a camera and learn how to do what this thing is that I'm lucky enough to do. But you got to put the work in. So yeah, there's definitely something to find. Until you've saved enough money to say no to garbage, you take that garbage and you make something cool out of it. Find something about it you like. Don't do sex scenes with weirdos if you don't love the material. Like there are choices where you're just like, not for me. But you're gonna do garbage. I'll still do garbage. That's the other thing. I could read the best script I ever read in my whole life, sign on, shoot it, and it's crap. It didn't work. That's okay. No one bats 1,000 or whatever. What is the term for baseball? 1,000?
Yeah, batting 1,000.
Bats 1,000. No one. You don't get that. There, great things turn into garbage more often than a great thing is great. Sometimes garbage turns into something great.
Yeah.
I think Weekend at Bernie's is great. That's it's ridiculous. It's a fun movie. Like, there are things like,
Yeah.
you can't,
Agreed.
you're not going to be able
There's
to
no
know
guar-
if it's
yeah,
going
there's
to be
no
great or
guarantee-
bad.
Yeah, there's no
It's not up to
guarantee of
you.
anything.
It's not up to any one person. It's not up to the director, the editor, the sound department, wardrobe, the actors, the writer. It's up to all of those people doing the best they can for something to be great.
Oh my gosh, I'm all choked up. I'm so emotional. Jesus.
Oh,
So Paget Brewster, you are the best guest that has ever been at the Roundtable. I'm not even lying. Really. I don't say that to
I
just,
saw a bunch.
I don't say that to just
everybody
everybody when we're done with this, but you
I know
are
you do.
hands down like the greatest. Okay, so we're done. We're just
Okay.
gonna call it a day. What do you think?